The population of bee colonies is a fairly common phenomenon in our country, and it's very important to understand very well why these things happen. Let's analyze in this video what the main causes of bee colony depopulation are. Hello, I am Oscar, and in this video we will analyze and dig a little deeper to see what are the causes for which colonies disappear, bees disappear, and colonies depopulate. The first and the most important thing regarding the disappearance of the population of bee colonies is the presence of viruses and other diseases. Diseases such as Nosema or Varroa significantly weaken the strength of the bee colonies, reducing their ability to defend themselves and survive. It is very important to understand these things, and I mentioned Nosema and Varroa because they are the strongest in this regard. For example, in short, we when talk about Nosema, it practically amplifies the effect of various treatments applied to the plants, herbicides and other substances used to treat crops such as rapeseed, sunflower, corn, and so on. And when we have a problem in the apiary with Nosema, when colonies are infested at a low, moderate, or a high level, these factors determine how strongly the presence of the crop treatments will affect the respective colony. For example, rapeseed and sunflower fields are where we most often encounter these situations. How does this happen in practice? You are at the rapeseed fields, the colony has very nice brood, yet most of the time it does not develop properly. Many worker bees are lost, and you have a high mortality rate among the foragers, both in front of hives and the rapeseed fields. This is because these crops must be treated accordingly in order to produce. However, when these treatments are applied and your colonies, your bees are not as healthy as they should be, when there is a presence of Nosema, it affects worker bees much more severely. Because Nosema usually has a longer cycle, young bees get infected when cleaning various cells. Nurse bees become infected with Nosema, and it takes about 20 to 22 days for the diseases to fully develop. By then, these young nurse bees have become foragers, where Nosema reaches maturely, strikes, and they collapse because they come into contact with various substances, herbicides, pesticides, and so on. This way, you have a high mortality rate and massive depopulation of bee colonies in rapeseed and sunflower fields. For example, let's take the treatment they apply. It's not something positive, it has a negative effect, sure. Maybe it affects bee immunity by 2 to 5%, but it doesn't kill the bees. Slightly it weakens their immunity, but doesn't create serious problem. However, when your bees are infested with Nosema, then the same neonicotinoids, pesticides, etc. will kill them. That's why bees infested with Nosema die in rapeseed and sunflower fields, leading to massive depopulation. But the difference is not the treatment. The treatment is present in both causes, in both situations. So, where does the real problem come in? The problem is that beekeepers like to blame someone else. Not me! I am innocent. I did everything correctly. I treated my bees. My bees are perfectly healthy. But in reality, that's not true. People like to blame others instead of taking responsibility of their bees for their apiary. It's easy to say, I did a treatment. I didn't do a treatment. I just used some herbal infusions, some random plants. But that doesn't help. It only slows things down. For example, wormwood extract or propolis tincture. They only slow down Nosema's development. They don't stop it. There is no real prevention for Nosema. I know many will say, Oscar, you are an idiot. Mind your own business. I don't care. There is no good prevention for Nosema. You can use any product, but it won't eliminate Nosema. It only slows it down. That's all. Yes, we use propolis tincture, we use wormwood extract, but not just for this, not just against Nosema. They help a little, yes, but only by slowing Nosema's development. For treating Nosema, we use fumagillin. It is the only product proven to be effective against it. Because when Nosema is not present and the same neonicotinoids are there, the effects on bees' immunity is 6 to 10 times weaker. The same applies to Varroa. When bees are infested with Varroa, Varroa consumes the bees' fat body, which, guess what? Massively weakens their immunity. It has the same effect as Nosema. Because Nosema weakens immunity and Varroa, through the wounds it creates, spreads viruses, bacteria and other pathogens, further weakening the bees. Bees can't regenerate properly because these wounds don't close and their internal organs, including their intestines, can't heal as they should. And then when they are infested with Varroa, they come into contact with various chemicals and die in the fields. Because the beekeeper didn't do his job. 90 to 95% of bees' disappearance are caused by the beekeeper, either due to lack of knowledge, negligence, or ignorance, but it is caused by the beekeepers. Do you want to avoid problems with bee disappearance? Do you want to prevent colony depopulation? Learn the lesson and apply a proper treatment against Nosema. Apply a proper treatment against Varroa. If you do this correctly, you will never have a problem with a massive colony depopulation. Because these two things, Nosema and Varroa, are what lead to colony collapse. The presence of viruses and other disease, especially Nosema and Varroa, or just Nosema, or just Varroa, is enough to cause depopulation. Even Nosema alone in our apiary is enough, and Nosema is much more dangerous than Varroa. That's why I mentioned it first. Nosema is far more dangerous than Varroa because Varroa is visible. You can see it. It's there. You know it's there, and you apply treatments from time to time. Nosema? No. Nosema is invisible. If you have a microscope, then yes, you can detect it. But 99% of beekeepers don't have a microscope. They don't know how to detect Nosema. They are not prepared for this. Well, to be fair, most don't even know how to properly detect Varroa. But that's another discussion. Until you learn how to detect Nosema in your apiary, you must treat your colonies with fumagillin at least twice a year, in the fall and in the spring. Because with Nosema there is no prevention. Its spores are present in every single apiary. There is no apiary where Nosema isn't present at some level, either very low or very high. By the time you notice that your colony has a Nosema problem, it is already too late. So, how can you detect it without a microscope? It's very, very simple. Let's say there are 3 levels of infestation. Grade 1, low infestation, grade 2, medium infestation, and grade 3, severe infestation. If your colony is a grade 1, you will never notice it. At grade 1 infestation, you can lose 20 to 50% of your worker bees in various crops like rapeseed or sunflower. Up to 50% of the worker population can be lost at this level. At grade 2 infestation, you can lose between 50 to 80% of the worker bee population in your colonies. At grade 3 infestation, the entire colony disappears. You are left with empty frames or frames filled with honey, brood, everything still there except for the worker bees, which are completely gone. Only a few very young bees might remain. At this stage, when these young bees reach the point where they should have advanced into their worker roles, they also die because they don't know how to transition. And if Varroa is also present, then you will find the hive completely empty at grade 3 infestation. Grade 1 can be detected. You have no way of knowing except with a microscope that has at least a 400 or magnification to make an accurate diagnosis. At grade 3, the hive is empty. From grade 2 and up, you can detect Nosema. Here is how. Take an older bee that's crawling around in the front of the hive, a bee that is near death, pull out its stinger carefully, extracting the entire intestine. If the intestine is a nice golden yellow, slightly orange in color, it's normal. But if the intestine is a bright, pale yellow, like lemon color, or even white, you have a Nosema problem. If the intestine appears marble white, looking very strange, then you are at grade 3 infestation. At this stage, you can detect Nosema with 50 to 70% accuracy. But by the time it reaches grade 3, there are almost nothing you can do. The only possible solution is treatment with fumagillin, and maybe you'll manage to save the bees, but you have already lost the production. That's why Nosema is extremely important. And let's not forget, Varroa is just as critical. People say Varroa follows a cycle. It comes in waves every 2, 3, or 4 years. No, it's not true. These waves are created by beekeepers. You are the reason they happen. If you applied strategic treatments every single year the way they should be done conscientiously, there would be no waves. If every beekeeper treated their hives correctly and consistently, there would be no Varroa outbreaks. But what does a beekeeper do? One year, they have a massive problems with Varroa because they treated half-heartedly, they lose 80 to 30% of their colonies. Then, for the next 1 or 2 years, they treat more seriously, and after that, they think, there is no more problem, so they relax their treatments again. This is what created the so-called Varroa cycle. And Nosema follows the same patterns because of the beekeeper. So why don't this happen in my apiary? Because we take this seriously. Every single year, our colonies receive treatments against Nosema. We have a strategic treatment plan against Varroa. And that's why we don't experience this cycle. Yes, in migratory beekeeping, you might bring in some contamination from other colonies. But when you apply a strategic treatment, their impact is minimized. Point 2. Low quality queens. Inferior queens lead to weak, vulnerable colonies that are more susceptible to disease and other threats. If you have a low quality queens, you will have weak colonies. Even if you do everything else right, when you apply certain Varroa treatments, you weaken the queens. As a result, the queen can no longer lay eggs properly. Her egg laying capacity drops to 30 to 50%. This happens especially when treating with oxalic acid, formic acid, and similar treatments. If the treatment method is incorrect, you not only reduce the queen's egg laying ability, but you also weaken the bee's immunity. And this brings us back to Nosema. When Nosema is present in the bees' bodies, it weakens their immune system. Then it starts spreading, taking over the colony. And once again, you end up with a massive colony depopulation. That's why it is absolutely crucial to select high quality queens. Use only treatments against Nosema and Varroa and charbrood that do not destroy queen quality. Because if you treat for Varroa with acids and damage the queen's egg laying ability, you have lost that colony's production forever until you replace the queen share with a strong, prolific one. This is why queen quality is critically important. Point number 3 is especially inefficient maintenance. Poor maintenance or incorrect methods of growth or maintenance. For example, improper use of stimulative feeding or poor selection of queen bees can lead to decline because the food, the stimulations you provide, the food you administer to the bees, whether in the form of syrup or candy, positively or negatively affect the bee's body and the bee's immunity. Because any stimulation you provide, any food you administer, any treatment you give has two effects. It either strengthens the bee's immunity or weakens the bee's immunity. Because when you administer a treatment against Varroa inside the bee's intestines, inside the bees, certainly things will degrade, will deteriorate. That is why it's extremely important when you perform various treatments against Nosema, against Varroa, to introduce in the bee's diet those things that afterward help regenerate the intestines, regenerate the bee's cell. And very few people talk about this. And no, you don't need an academy or schooling for this, because unfortunately most educated people have it backward, because they believe different things that are not true. And I don't want to go into that there, because then this video would be around 3 to 5 hours long if I were to dive deeply into the areas of biology, microbiology, and bee genetics. But what is very important is that then you perform in treatment against Nosema, it's less severe there, because fumagillin does not negatively affect or damage at the cellular level. Nosema damage at the cellular level. It damages the bee's intestines internally. And then you must provide that candy which you give as a part of the treatment against Nosema, you must introduce various supplements, various substances that help the bee at the cellular level to reorganize, to recover, to recreate, to regenerate. And in this way, you can strengthen the immunity of the bee colonies. You need to have very, very good management, a very good method of working, so you can keep the colonies healthy. Colonies that are healthy, for this you need a very, very good management. A method of growth, a strategic development method, out which essentially ensures everything the swarm or the respective colony needs, both nutritionally and health-wise. Because if you don't do these things, the immunity starts to decline and bee's fat body doesn't not develop as it should. That colony will not overwinter well. These colonies, those swarms, cannot overcome obstacles with easy, because the bee's fat body is extremely important. And everything we do, everything we administer has one purpose: to strengthen the bee's immunity and build the bee's fat body, to make it rich in various minerals, amino acids, everything they need, especially the vitellogenin part. It is extremely important that when we use different supplements, we use those that are rich in amino acids, minerals, and can help the colony strengthen its immune system, build a fat body rich in vitellogenin. And this part is important, and of course we need to have a very, very good stimulation strategy, very well thought out, so that this also strengthens the colonies significantly and does not exhaust them. Because when you stimulate with large quantities, you exhaust and do not strengthen the immunity, the fat body of the bees. With regular stimulation, with small quantities, you strengthen the body and immunity of the bees. However, when the bees have to process an enormous amount of syrup, which you use for stimulation, you wear out the bees, and with this wear, their immunity declines. Point number 4 is a genetic predisposition to swarming. If you have a genetic tendency, a high swarming tendency, you can have very, very low productivity and predisposition to depopulation. Not because of diseases, but because of this. If you keep the colonies tightly, as they should be kept to produce well, to develop well, but if they have a very high swarming tendency, you won't be able to keep the colonies tightly, because as soon as you tighten them a little, they swarm, and that colony never reaches high production capacity. It just swarms, 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 and reinforces the swarming tendency. However, if you make carefully selection from this point of view, you can have productive colonies, strong colonies that will not depopulate because of swarm leaves and loses half of its workers, half of its population. So, this also contributes to the depopulation of bee colonies. And the last thing that affects bees colony depopulation the least, but still contributes up to 5%, I thought I should mention this as well. It is climate change and unfavorable weather conditions. Here I am generally referring to sudden weather change or severe winters that can seriously affect bees that are not well prepared, or very, very mild winters, which again affect colonies that are not well prepared. Because if you haven't done the treatments very, very well, very effectively against Nosema and Varroa, and it's not a strong enough winter, and the colonies, that particular colony has brood almost constantly, then Varroa, for example, can continue to develop during the winter period. And then in spring, you will have a very, very noticeable generational turnover, because some of those bees are already infested with Varroa. Yes, you can intervene here, but only with a very, very good treatment strategy you can use to do this. For this you need to have an annual strategy for treatments. If you don't have one, you won't be able to develop a strong apiary, a strong, healthy colonies. And if there are very, very harsh winters, but you don't provide the necessary conditions for those colonies, the same situation arises. Varroa is present, Nosema is present. You have poor quality food, you didn't winter the colonies well, you didn't stimulate the colonies well, the bees' immunity is not strong enough, it's a harsh winter, and you don't provide them with protein candy for the winter period, so they remain clustered, they run out of food and may starve. They may die because you provide them with very poor quality of food. Food that has a lot of residues. If it's a long winter, it's important to know these things. But as I said, based on my experience over the last 20 years, these are the factors that affect colonies the least. What affects them the most are Nosema and Varroa. That is the main cause of the bee colony depopulation. 90 to 95% of all colonies that die, disappear, or become depopulated are due to these two causes. And all these things, practically 90 to 95%, boil down to one aspect: the beekeeper, who is responsible for everything. So, the sole cause of bee colony depopulation is the beekeeper. The beekeeper who didn't treat against Nosema. The beekeeper who didn't treat against Varroa. The beekeeper who didn't properly prepare the colonies for winter. The beekeeper who didn't stimulate the colonies to strengthen their immune system, build their fat body, and have a higher sufficient level of vitellogenin. The beekeeper who didn't provide optimal conditions for wintering the bee colonies. The beekeeper who didn't create optimal conditions for the development of bee colonies for production and all these elements. Because all the things that do not depend on the beekeeper, such as what has been used to treat various plantation, the surrounding environment, etc., affect the apiary by about 5%. About 5%. In your family apiary, over the last 50 years, since my family has been keeping bees, we only had a problem once where the colonies were poisoned to a certain extent, and we lost some of the workers. We intervened, or my father intervened. I was very young at that time, and he saved 70% of the apiary. In 50 years, we had this issue just once, where the apiary got poisoned by a certain treatment that was used. It caught them, and we had a problem in 50 years just once. Yes, I receive message and calls every year saying, "Look, Oscar, my bees were were poisoned. No, my dear friend, your bees weren't poisoned. You didn't treat for Nosema, you didn't treat for Varroa, and your colonies depopulated, the bees disappeared from the hives. They weren't poisoned. Take responsibility, treat your hives correctly, and you won't have problems. Periodically, I still get calls. For instance, I had a case recently, not hearing of such thing much anymore, but I spoke with a lady and she told me, Oscar, my bees were stolen from the hive. I asked, were your hive stolen? No, just the bees. They come, remove the frames, shock the bees out, and put the frames back exactly as they were, and then they left. I responded, no, your bees weren't stolen. You didn't treat for Nosema, you didn't treat for Varroa, and out of 30 colonies, 15 disappeared, massively depopulated. They weren't stolen. Why? Because the beekeeper didn't do their job. They are not educated enough, not aware enough of various things, and they don't do their job. As I've said, ignorance brings its results, or negligence brings its results. These are the causes of mass bee depopulation, because if the beekeeper did their job, correct treatment for Nosema, correct treatment for Varroa, and Varroa infested brood should be at least mostly eliminated, to not 100% you can aim for 95%. If 95% is eliminated, you will never have problems. From our experience, you're likely to have a poisoning issue once in every 50 years. Just once every 50 years. That is our experience. So I hope I've given you some very important tips, and don't blame the environment, the climate, or neonicotinoids. Oh, I'll just do the treatment so it's done. No, do your treatment correctly. Don't you know how? Learn. That's why I'm preparing various materials. That's why I'm bringing different resources. That's why I'm building a community, so we can learn together, develop together, and build a business together. A strong, productive, and healthy apiary together. But it's hard. Yes. Sometimes, yes. You have to give your best. Yes. You have to learn. Yes. You have to think hard and use your mind. It's worth it because time passes anyway. The only difference will be one thing. You'll have a weak apiary with dozens of problems, or you'll have a strong, productive, very good apiary. The difference lies solely in your decisions. How you choose to act, to invest, to educate yourself, and to do the correct treatments for Nosema, Varroa, Varroa-infested brood, and so on. Or you can say, Oscar doesn't know what he's talking about. He's just talking nonsense again. What is important is that if you want to learn together, if you want to develop together, then I'm waiting for you in this fantastic community we are building. And no, we don't need everyone. We only need the people here in this community who truly want to develop. Only those who want to move forward step by step and build something beautiful. If you are not yet subscribed to my channel, subscribe now. I've prepared a fantastic video for you. You can find it somewhere here. See you there. Until next time, keep buzzing.